Okay, let me just finish this
Are we
this
live on YouTube yet?
link
No, we're not
linking
live
the
yet.
tweet.
Okay, can I go use the restroom real quick?
We're live now, but go ahead.
Sorry.
Uh,
We're-
go ahead, Alex. Get us started. Give me a count of 10, then we start.
in just one second.
Okay.
Let me just link our
Oh,
YouTube.
the sausage is made, people.
Okay, so you want me to count down from 5 or what?
I
3?
want you to count to 10 in your head and then
Oh,
start
okay.
from right now.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another special episode of the Sonic Talk podcast, Sonic Superstars Edition. I am your host, Nuckles87, and with me today is GX Echidna,
I have a
or
very long
GX.
I have a very long wind-up animation before I'm available to attack.
No, you don't have a very long wind-up animation.
It's like
Shigs
15
does,
seconds long.
because he's not here right now, because he has to use the little boy's room.
How the sausage is made, people. Like I said before the show,
So
and I'll
I
say now.
cannot introduce him as being here right now because he is not here right now. But I guarantee that the moment he is here, I will introduce him, and he will apologize for being late if he has any class. He won't if he doesn't. We'll find out in a moment.
I don't think you get to make him apologize for being late, especially when he said he was going before it, and I basically forced the show to start.
Yes, okay, fine. Then it's your fault.
That's fine.
And I know
I will accept
I
that
know
fault.
you won't apologize because you don't have any class.
So yeah, we're talking about superstars tonight.
Yes, we are. And moment, I'm just burning burning time because I don't want to start until Shigs is
But
here.
so
So we're just
like,
talking.
I mean, give us highest level at
My
least.
bathroom is connected to my bedroom, so I can hear you guys from here.
Okay.
Thank God,
And everyone
not the
heard
other way
that.
around. So yeah, I guess I don't know, highest level. Let's start with that, maybe.
Okay. It's pretty fun. Like it is a pretty fun game that uh slowly begins to fall apart at the seams as we get towards the end of the game, especially like
Yeah.
the final bosses and some of the some of the uh hard mode levels. Okay, so let's just establish that we will be talking spoilers tonight. Um, the entire enchilada, everything up until the final boss through the final boss battle. So
The point in which classic Elise arrives.
so if you don't want to hear that, I don't know, go away, come back and listen to this later. Once you've beaten the final boss.
And then the final
Okay, I'm fully
boss,
here
and
now.
then the final boss.
But it's
And the ultra final
like
boss.
for me in terms of like the classic Sonic game pantheon, I like to put it firmly in the middle of the pack. Like, of course, like, admittedly, I am separating out the main campaign from Trip stuff, which is kind of another can of worms. But like when it comes to just the main campaign, like I had more fun with it than Sonic 1, Sonic 2, and Sonic CD, but it's definitely not nearly as good as Sonic Mania and Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which are like the cream of the crop when it comes to classic Sonic. But if you
Oh,
want
better
to
than
start
Sonic
including
4.
Trip stuff, then it does go down a bit.
That's interesting. My placement, the way I was going to qualify it was, I don't think it's better than any of the original Genesis stuff, but I do think it is ultimately better than the classic Sonic moments of like generations or forces or obviously Sonic 4, that kind
I
of stuff.
mean,
Like
I mean, let's be honest. Sonic 1 hasn't aged all that well.
it
Like
hasn't,
I,
but
I think I don't think saying it's better than that is saying much.
sure. But even then, at least in my eyes, I think Sonic 1 still ekes past this, and for me, it just comes down to, like, some big issues I have with the game's pacing.
With the bosses, from what I understand it.
Bosses, definitely. I also have issues with the overall camera for it. Like, the way I would say is, I don't think Sonic Frontiers is fixable per se, because the problems that it suffers are, like, deeply rooted with the overall design of that game. This game I would feel is much more like fixable. Like you could just pull out the camera a bit farther so you can see more of the level as you're going through. You could just cut all boss hit points in
Which
half
is
and
something they do in local multiplayer. It's panned out a bit more.
yeah.
I mean, local co-op that is.
Like I'm really hoping that the mod community will find a way to do that in a single player scenario.
I'm sure they will. Like they're already modding this thing.
Yeah, but I mean, we're starting in early days with stuff like model mods and texture mods. We're not to the point yet where we're clearly editing full-on scripts or anything. I the highs are pretty good. Like I'm pretty happy with the high points of it. It has some creative ideas, it has some fun things that Sonic games haven't done before. It has some things that really could only be done in the 3D space with 3D polygonal characters and models. But then it's just that sometimes you hit that brick wall of like, oh, why did you design this like this? And it happens just frequently enough that I'm not sure how much like I don't know. It just harmed the overall experience for me. I like it, but I don't love it.
By and large, I enjoy like most. Go on.
I was gonna say for me, it's kind of the thing of hey, if you want the main story, if you want just that as your pure Sonic entertainment, you're gonna enjoy it quite a bit. I thought the main story outside of everything else is like an 8.5 out of 10. I overall enjoyed it.
That is my exact feeling.
I didn't even have too much problem with the bosses in the main story. Once I got their patterns down, the only nitpick I had with that was the fact that they had that waiting period before you can hit them again. Having multiple hits instead of like having 3 hits and they're dead, having 6 hits, that's fine when you can allowed to use those, Chaos Emerald powers because that's giving you an upper hand.
But
It's just the length of when you can hit them again that bothered me. But outside of that, I there wasn't a single level I didn't enjoy. It didn't feel like certain Sonic games where you're doing say a dungeon level labyrinth zone or the water world.
Oh yeah, like the main campaign.
Quite a bit. Even the water level felt like it was going at a good pace. I like the pacing of each level in this game. I really
in the main
enjoyed that part.
campaign, I would say there is no equivalent to like Metropolis Zone or Labyrinth Zone. And that's part of the reason why I kind of put that above Sonic's 1 and 2, because like for the most part, like the difficulty it feels fair throughout the whole thing. I enjoy most of the level design gimmicks. Like for me, like I can specifically like remember and name like the couple of things from the main campaign that I did not like. Like I don't like the mice from the cyberspace level because they control very poorly and they are very unintuitive and like
see how they
it's just not
control
fun.
poorly. If you tap one way, they're going one way. If you tap the other way, they're going the other way. They're
You can't
strictly
turn around.
control.
And
no,
like,
you're not supposed to. You have to go in one
and
direction.
you also
That's the trick to it.
You can't turn around, and you also cannot like see when the enemies are coming from from above you, and so like I think I'm good. I go, and then all of a sudden there's like a big cat thing coming down on me, and I can't get out of the way, and because like you can't turn around or anything, then I get hit, knocked off, and that's it. And like that was just so freaking
My friend
annoying.
Mike had an issue with that. I don't know why. I didn't really have too much of an issue with that. I was able to always, stop and wait to see if I could see the cats before I'd go again. So I usually got through that area without too much trouble.
Like once they
But
figured
anyway,
out the
one thing
trick,
I was going to say that I also really like is the graphics on the characters themselves. They are so expressive in this game compared to previous
yeah,
games. I love the little nods to give each one. Like even when you're running, Sonic and Tails' ears can pull back, or when Sonic's just running his a little olive nose might twitch and stuff. And
I
it
do
just
really
adds a
enjoy this
lot more
game's visuals.
personality to each character.
Hmm. And like, and I do appreciate Trip's personality, especially.
Trip is
You know,
I
definitely
like how
one of the
she's
more
kind of shy and she'll hide under her little helmet when she's looking at you and like, oh my gosh, somebody's watching me, and then she'll grab her helmet and put it on.
Trip's
yeah,
definitely
like,
one of the more standout elements of this game to have it introduced. Both like the main structure of the game with her being a pseudo antagonist, but also, once you get to play as her, she is very fun to play as.
yeah,
Whenever
she has a very
She
nice
feels
move
like
set.
less of an antagonist than Knuckles even was back in the day,
Ex-
because it's obvious she's kind of reluctant to be with the villains at the time.
and yeah, like it almost felt like she was just more of a like
Probably someone who's native of the
they
island.
forced her into it. Didn't
Yeah,
feel like she was doing it of
that's
her
how I
own
see it.
volition. Of course, there are certain aspects of this game's plot that aren't entirely clear, just
Yeah,
like the
that's
classics, I
another
guess.
negative is that because they're doing a nonverbal storytelling, some things could be a little bit confusing on what exactly is going on.
Well, I would say there's at least one moment that doesn't actually make any amount of sense whatsoever, and I guess, is it fine if I just spoil? I'm gonna spoil the last boss for this.
Oh yeah, I knew.
Okay, yeah. Okay, are we talking about Eggman, suddenly having the ability to reverse time
No,
with a machine out of
No,
nowhere?
no,
no.
that's entirely expected. The issue is they said so between the animated sequence, the Trio of Trouble animated short, and the way that they emphasize this weird dragon-looking thing, bad drawing that Eggman made that was based on hieroglyphs in temples. They kind of set up as like, oh, this big important dragon.
Yeah,
The dragon doesn't have any bearing on the plot. It just shows up at the end
yeah.
for
He
no reason.
just comes out of
Yeah,
nowhere,
see,
like
I
not even
haven't.
really a proper
I don't
cutscene.
mind being spoiled, but I haven't gotten to that particular level. I always thought the dragon was just Trip herself,
That's what
so
I
they didn't know
assumed,
it.
but no.
Yeah,
Like
well,
there's another dragon.
yeah, it's weird.
By the
It's
way,
a weird
that's all
choice.
accurate with her sun gazer lizard thing. Is that in some areas they call it a dragon of some type.
Ah, neat.
Also, the way she rolls is the way sun dragons will roll up their bodies in the
Oh,
exact same manner.
so they actually like took a character that has a spike that has like a spiky ball defense for this, huh?
Yeah,
That's cool.
Kinda, though
kinda.
in
Yeah,
her case they
she's more accurate than a lot of the other characters' animal traits, basically.
but in her case, like, practically speaking, hey, we sort of have an idea of what all the characters are. Hey, Sonic, he runs and does the drop dash. Tails, he flies. Knuckles glides, climbs, etc. Amy, Amy's a little bit differently. Unlike the Sonic Origins version of her, her hammer rush does not have like a drop dash quality to it. All it
Yeah,
does is just make her hit her hammer continuously. So not
honestly, that makes it a little more useless.
a little bit less useful, but like, hey, you need to
Which
get
is
through
weird
a.
because I swore when I played this, at the Summer Games Fest, that she was able to hit other animals as she was knocking through it with her hammer.
Oh, yeah, no, she can do that. She just doesn't get any momentum.
Right.
Oh,
It
yeah.
doesn't act like her version of a drop dash effectively. It just sort of
Yeah.
yeah.
And they, I guess they made up for it with a double jump for her.
Right. That
Oh
is
yeah, like
like let's be real. Amy's OP. Amy is totally overpowered in this.
she is really good at killing bosses.
She's not as overpowered as Trip, who I would best
Trip's
describe.
got the double jump and the spike wall attachment, basically from Sonic
She had,
Colors.
as I'm sure GX was about to say, she's
Yeah.
basically a mix between Amy, Knuckles, and like I guess you could say like Vector or something, at least in terms of how her jump looks.
Yeah,
So
kinda.
like they borrow a bunch of different elements from different characters to give her a very unique move set that lets her move around the levels in unique ways.
And in some ways, like, yeah, it makes it very interesting. One thing that she can do that no other characters can do is she has wall climbing, but she also has ceiling climbing. She can
Oh, okay.
like grapple
Also part
onto
Espio
ceilings.
then.
You
Yeah.
can't do wall. You can't go from wall climbing to a ceiling.
You
climbing,
can if you just like double jump into it.
It's tricky.
That's a little tough.
Yeah, it's tricky, but you can do it, and also it's easier whenever there is a like Espio himself. Whenever there's like a curve to go up to it, helps.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I don't know. We kind of started at the end. I forced us to start at the end.
Yeah, I mean that is what's freshest in your memory, so I get it.
Yeah.
But like I don't know, I guess like the main campaign in my mind is the highlight of this game. It has the best pacing, it has the best level design, and like there like I said before, there are just very few like truly down moments for me. Although like for me, the okay, I mentioned the mouse. Another big issue with the campaign for me is the final level is kind of cheap. Like apparently, like they really used the retro engine code, which means that you also get this kind of BS crash kill stuff as well in that level. And like there are just certain death rooms that just do not that are just not telegraphed the first time. Which I don't know, like given how well this game, the main campaign generally is pretty good at telegraphing things, but they kind of screw it up right at the end there.
I'm a little bit so. I guess I have this eternal issue with a lot of Sonic games where I don't think that Sonic Team is very good at like figuring out where 2D Sonic needs to position its camera. I did a 1-to-1 comparison between this game and like actual retro engine Sonic 1 over on Origins. And what I found was, yeah, Sonic is the same position on the screen and roughly the same size between both games, but the feeling that I largely get with it is even if Sonic's the same size, the scale of the level doesn't feel right to me. Like it feels really big. It feels
the levels are very big in this game, which is one thing I like about it. But I will say, in terms of the camera, I didn't really have many issues with the camera in the main campaign. It's kind of again in Trip's campaign where I have a lot of issues.
Yeah, and when I say it feels really big, I don't mean like the scope of the levels are very long. Oh. I mean more along the lines of if you compare the size of a platform in Sonic 1 versus the size of a platform in Sonic Superstars, it feels like the scale is weird. Like things are just physically too big to fit on the screen. It's not that far removed from some of the issues I have with Nights into Dreams, I went back to kind of get a sense of like, okay, what am I talking about when I talk about scale in Nights into Dreams? Nights isn't that big, but what is big are all of the things and formations of things that he has to collect. So you can really only see one set of objects on the screen at a time, and if you want to set up like transitioning one set of objects to another set of objects so you can sort of chain actions, it's really difficult unless you already know what the level design's going to be. And I kind of feel at least a little bit of that way about this game, where I can look far enough ahead to tackle the one thing directly in front of me, but if there's another thing in front of that, I am not ready to be I'm not ready to prepare to actually handle that. Like, thankfully, for most of the game, it's not really an issue. It's pretty gentle in making sure that you can tackle it by not having as many things in front of you at a single time. But when the game starts picking up, it gets a bit more tricky. It's the kind of thing where you you want to be able to plan ahead like this. You want to be able to like predict where you're going to land whenever you're doing a jump, and the game doesn't always let you do that.
Hmm. I don't know. Like I know I never really had too much of that issue in the main campaign. Whenever I was moving through it, I was always paying attention to like ring placement and stuff, which generally tells you where things what things are happening that you might not be able to see on the screen yet. But I don't know. Like you aren't the only person who's had this issue. I know that on that on Twitter. Man, what TD?
Well, I'd say
Dang it!
even Dredd brought it up in his review that the camera just feels unusually close.
Okay. I'll be honest. I didn't read the review.
Yeah, but yeah, it's for me. It's like, hey, that part suffers, but also
Tracker. That's his name. Tracker.
Yeah, I like exploring in Sonic games. I come to classic Sonic games not so I can like blaze through as fast as possible, but I go through to kind of explore all the weird nooks and crannies, and the less of the stage that I can see at a given time, the less connected I really feel from the ability to explore.
I could see, from what I could see of the screen, I was always like feeling enticed to explore things. Like I could tell, like
Yeah, it didn't
where there
really
was
feel
more of the
like
level.
for me that I had any trouble exploring.
Well,
I was able to go everywhere I wanted.
but you couldn't always see like a good example is as Knuckles. If you were climbing on something, it didn't exactly like move the camera upwards to where you were going. In fact, as you sort of pushed upwards, the camera kind of was happy to leave you close to the top of the screen. So if there was something up there that, might impact your ability to climb or might hurt you, you really wouldn't have much time to be able to see it. And this was especially an issue in the trip playthrough that with the addition of like a lot of extra spikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a lot of pushback from me on anything regarding trip stuff. But
Yeah,
when it comes to Knuckles, like
that.
again, I just generally didn't have that issue. Like I would just, if I was climbing up something, I'd climb until I either hit a wall or hit something impassable, then jump
I
back
think I
down.
might have a solution to this problem though. If you have a second controller, maybe set it up for local multiplayer co-op and just play as one of the characters. The map will be zoomed out, and the other one will go
Like
right into. You have to press A to catch up. And just never press A. Then you
now
have
to be
more map.
to be clear, I certainly don't think simply pulling the camera out would have hurt this game at all. If anything, I'm sure it probably would have helped it at least for some people. Like it just wasn't an issue I personally ran into for a good chunk
not
of the
for
game.
me either.
And like like I said, this is my eternal fight with Sonic Team that like, hey, show me more screen. If you're going to build a game around pacing, show me more screen. Do not show me less.
course, I do. Of course, I do also fight you to the death overnight. So
Yes, we always fight overnight. I still feel strongly about how camera is handled in that game as well.
and it's still one of my favorite games ever. But one thing I really do appreciate, there are two things I enjoy about this game's level design. One is just that it feels like it flows very well most of the time. Like whenever I'm playing a 2D Sonic game, for me, flow is critical. Like how nice does it feel to just run through the level and like roll on things, jump on things and stuff. It's like yeah, like the layer levels get more prickly. They always do in Sonic, but like I do have a very easy time just getting a sense of speed and flow while I'm going through it. And another thing I really do enjoy is just how big the levels are. Like they are multi-tiered. There are very few bottomless pits throughout most of the main campaign. It and like so there are very few moments where I just I don't know, miss a platform, then I fall to my death. And the few times where that is the case, there is generally something that's telling you, hey, move up. There's something's happening. You don't want to be here, or there's something down there that'll kill you. So it does feel very deliberately designed for stuff like that.
But I might
makes it
add
enjoyable to me.
that it's not the DIMP style of flow. Like the DIMP
Oh
style.
no.
The DIMP style of flow is, hey, we're going to bounce you to a spring, to another spring, to another spring, and then drop you somewhere where we want to be, and then, I don't know, maybe there's a bottomless pit here. If there is, I don't know, sucks to be you.
I don't know. The DIMP style of flow, there are like 3 different versions of that.
Yeah.
I think the Rush version is generally like pretty good most of the time. This is not Sonic Advance for me.
No, this is definitely much. It at least flirts with the way that classic Sonic levels are designed, with maybe the exception of Speed Jungle. Speed Jungle feels a bit like a bit of an exception.
It's more automated, but I feel like even when you're grinding on the vines, you at least do generally have a lot of control over things. I enjoy how Speed Jungle handles grinding because it's effectively just I don't know, platforms that just send you forward in a direction. They just give you automatic momentum. Like you can stop, you can platform, you can change direction, you can do all that stuff if you really want to. It's just the game really does encourage you to just keep going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So it is kind of a nice medium between the truly automated stuff and standard classic Sonic level design.
What's the standout level for you?
Okay, let's see.
Do you want me to go first and then give you a chance to think?
Honestly, I guess the casino level.
The circus, the carnival circus thing?
Pinball Carnival. Although
that's the funniest friggin' level name because it's the most generic you could think of. I was talking to Alex on the Discord chat, and I was saying how I like the pinball physics. It feels exact to in that one level, the pinball carnival act, and then I looked it up and I'm like, that's exactly the name it was, Pinball Carnival act.
I'll be real. That might be my favorite too.
It's the most generic name.
Pinball Carnival has the best combination of level design, music, and bosses. It's I really enjoy the first half of Lagoon City. The first boss is fun, but then the second half, it's not one of my favorite levels, and that boss can be a little annoying. Although I do enjoy riding the wakes on those rockets. But it's definitely Pinball Carnival, I think.
Yeah, I like what Golden Capital is trying to do aesthetically. I just think that Pinball Carnival fulfills a lot of the same requirements, but does so with a stronger pace.
My big issue with Golden Capital for me is just the final boss. Like that Fang boss.
Yeah.
That was the first part where I got stuck, and ultimately I do enjoy that boss fight, but it just goes on for too long, and there are just too many things around that can damage you that aren't the boss. And so like I don't know, it can be a bit of a pain to replay, but I do like the rest of Golden Capital. I really enjoy its aesthetic.
Jason?
Yeah, like I said, I enjoy the main levels. I think they're got the proper speed to them, proper flow. I haven't had any where it just really grinded on me. The only one that I had a little bit of trouble with was the base that was slowly about to detonate if you didn't find a switch in time. That could be a little bit frustrating
You know
at
what?
time.
I really enjoyed that stage. It's like
And by the way,
it really adds a nice amount of tension. Sorry, go on.
to answer what I was mentioning before, I started up a two-player game in main story mode, and as soon as the second player went off screen, he went to A mode, but the camera, is panned out, so you could play it. I would not recommend it though if you're trying to get the Chaos Emeralds because you have to switch opponents switch players in between, so that wouldn't work out.
Yeah.
If you're just playing through the game, yeah, this is one way to zoom the camera out. Speaking of the way to get the Chaos Emeralds, yeah, easier than some games. Still, it wasn't the best bonus level.
No.
Really, it's just a swinging like Spider-Man. And the fifth level really, really annoyed me with the springs constantly moving you up and the emeralds constantly varying and going up and down, and made it extremely difficult to get that one.
Honestly,
I will say
I had a lot of fun with those stages.
the maze levels, which you get with every 50 rings and you go through a star post, those were awesome. I really enjoyed them much more than I did in Sonic 1. I like that they changed up things with the switches and the trip and the trapdoors. I was able to get through most of them with no
I
problem.
almost do for fun.
My only complaint with that is they came up way too frequently during the early stages. Every time you got, because it's hard to lose the rings in the early stages. So every time you get into a post, there's the thing, and so you're going through just to get medals.
Well, you skip it like I did because I didn't like either of them.
Really? You don't like the maze one either?
The maze one.
There's such a fun reinvention. Of the Sonic Special stage.
I don't like any version of that. I don't like the slow spinning, vague physicsy whatever is happening with them. It's just it's not what I'm here for. I don't feel like I have enough controller agency. As for the Emerald stages, you were suggesting before, like, hey, the actual strategy for them is to sort of try to cut off where the emerald is going to be. Yeah, the problem with that is that the camera is entirely pointed between you and the emerald, and good luck if you want to aim somewhere other than between those 2 points, because the tracking on what it wants you to home onto is bad. Like, it struggles to shift, it struggles to figure out where you actually want to go. It just kind of is, the only thing it's really good for is pointing you forward, and maybe you can kind of home onto the boost thing that you might want to get, but I found it to be just not giving me the sense of actual agency I wanted for that type of thing. And in that sense, like, hey, the only Sonic Special stage I still like anymore is just the one in Mania for the Emeralds. Like, that
still is the best one.
It still is the best one, and it's the one that I feel like I have the most actual control and agency over. I don't love the ones built on stage memorization. I don't like this one where the homing is just so loose that it doesn't really give you a sense of where you're going to latch onto. It just kind of
Yeah,
feels like a bunch of crap in the
there are
sky.
there are times where I could be right next to that frickin' emerald and it would not home in, or I could be a good ways away from it and it would suddenly home in. It's felt like it was almost random at that point.
But so going back to the mazes, one thing I really do enjoy about those is that they introduce lots of new mechanics that kind of add some neat twists to the formula to keep things fresh. And like some of my
Some I mentioned in
favorites,
my previews, like the little triggers that'll switch
yeah,
doors and might cut off those areas where you're gonna fall through the level
like you,
itself. In
like
local co-op, there both of you are going through that, and it's kind of cool. Like if one of you uh, dies, the other one still can survive, and if you get to a medal, when it goes to the next maze, you're both back in there and can go for it. And it also keeps track of who won what medal, which is also
now
kind of neat.
so like are, I do kind of want to talk about the final level for a bit, but before we do, are there any other like
Well,
levels from the main campaign you guys want to talk
I mean,
about?
obviously, we have to talk about Frozen Base Act 2.
Oh yeah. So like I remember when I was
So you
like
mean
telling you
uh,
guys about the
the
game.
the fantasy zone from Sonic?
Yes. When I was telling you guys about the game, I was like, okay, like it's not, it doesn't have any of the level design isn't as clever as Mania, and there's no Puyo Puyo Fever, and there's no Puyo Puyo moment, and then I get to this, and it's like, oh, okay, there's at least
Yeah,
the Puyo Puyo
it's
moment.
completely it's completely a level from Fantasy Zone, even with the exact same enemies.
And I love fantasy songs. This is just such an awesome twist for me, and it works really well. And like, man, it's just fun. I'm so happy that they just randomly decided to stick fantasy zone in this game.
It's
The
very
the other
amusing.
one I thought was a nice surprise was the final level before the final boss in the main story, where Eggman does that reversal things, and
Well,
suddenly
like
the
I
level
said, we
you
were
were
gonna
having
like
your
we could talk. I
bar.
said we
It,
were gonna bring that up after we like finished talking about the
I
any
mean,
other levels
it sounds
we
like
wanted
we're
to mention.
bringing it up and talking about it now, so let's just
Okay.
do it.
Well, all right. So like,
So that was
what?
kind of a fun surprise. I wasn't expecting him one to have anything that could reverse time, but then when he's doing it,
Yeah.
you're
Like
going
I
through the
admit,
entire level backwards to the left instead of to the right, and getting zoomed
having
up and out.
an
And that
entire
was just
level
a neat little gimmick, a neat trick, and I really enjoyed that.
having an entire level that's just running backwards is really cool. Although it does kind of result in some jankiness. Like there's an enemy that like instead of like the fireballs going out of it, they're like appearing in midair and coming towards it, and that is just a pain in the butt.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that just sort of spawns in its end location without a lot of warning and then ultimately hits you on its path to go into its origin location because,
But
there's not much of a warning to react to it.
But on the whole, it is still less cheap than the first act because instead of everything coming down to crush you, it's just all coming back up. Like it does kind of put why the first act was designed the way it was in perspective because this stuff had to work both ways. But it's a gimmick that's pretty cool, but doesn't quite work from a level design perspective, in my view.
It's a neat idea. I think if they made it a little bit more simpler and put it a little bit earlier in the game, that I think it might have hit harder in what it was doing. But because
Yeah.
you're so close to the end of the game and they're ramping up complexity of platforming that then adding a massive gimmick on top of that, it doesn't entirely work for me. It's still neat. I think it's a cool idea. It's just by the end there, I was ready for something, a little bit more challenging, but also a little bit more straightforward.
Um, although then the final boss that it leaks into, my God.
Do we want to talk about that boss or all bosses?
We should talk about all bosses. But on the whole, okay, so by and large, for bosses, they have super long wind-up animations, and you can't hit them constantly, and that is an issue. I know quite a few people have, including you, GX.
I didn't think much of this, but I was talking on another Discord server about it with someone else going through the game, and as he was going through, I generally speaking, hey, in our Sonic Stadium Discord server, I'm probably among the least positive Sonic fans. In other non-Sonic servers, I'm probably one of the most positive. But I was talking to him. He was having a very not fun time with it. And a lot of what he brought up was just how much it slows down the game whenever you get to these boss fights. The fact that, like you said, there's just a weird amount of iframes that they just want you to, sit through the boss being a big boss event. And one of the ideas that I kind of pitched to him was like, hey,
it's to the point where you have to hold a button to skip it if you want.
But would it make you feel any different if instead of having these bosses be the end of a level, if they were just separated out into their own level? Because a lot of Sonic games have actually done this. And he kind of had to sit with it for a while, but ultimately said, yeah, that would probably at least change how he feels a bit. Whenever you put a boss like that, one that requires you to just sort of sit with it for a while, as like the end cap of a level, what it blocks you from doing is stepping away for a bit. Like, it doesn't give you a good sense of finality of, yeah, I got through the level, because you didn't get through the level. There's this boss at the end. And when that boss can take anywhere from 2 minutes to 8 minutes, it's just too much for what this game is going for.
The cyber stage is really guilty of that, because you get to it and it lets you hit the thing to release the flickies and the animals, and then all of a sudden, no, the level is not over. You have to deal with the giant metal Sonic and Eggman. It's also the only level where your medals can actually be useful in the main story, because you can make up that particular boss depending on your customization in the battle mode.
Yeah, that is something I got to discover during Trip's story, because I guess when I went through that level the first time, I hadn't built anything yet.
Okay.
And so, I don't know, here I am just fighting a Mecha Sonic.
Okay, I need you to explain the difference then, because I did none of that, and I just got the empty vessel, we'll say.
Did you build anything for battle mode?
I touched nothing in battle mode, not in the slightest.
That's why you only got the generic robots.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's the only time in the story where that actually comes into play, versus that very bland and generic battle mode, which we'll discuss later, I imagine. That you can spend all your medals on.
So, I had one that was just Mecha Sonic, and so I have I literally just got to fight Mecha Sonic, and then I got to fight a giant Mecha Sonic, and it was just, I don't know, it was a pretty cool surprise.
But a slow and not particularly interesting boss fight.
I mean, I don't know. That was not a boss I had much issue with.
I'm not asking if you had issues with it. I'm saying, did you find it interesting as a boss fight?
I mean, I found it fun. It wasn't especially creative.
I did not really care for hey, here's these little ones flying around, just memorize its pattern, then hit it, and then wait for several seconds for it to get into position
See,
again.
now, on the whole, I didn't have much of an issue with wind-up animations or anything, because generally that just kind of gave me a chance to sort of take a proverbial breather between between attacks, especially on the more stressful bosses in hard mode. Like, I don't know, I guess never really thought too much about the animations and
It
stuff and the wait between attacks until the final boss.
it it killed the pacing for me. Like I don't want these like I can understand like hey, yeah, it does give you a breather, but whenever you're on attempt number 5 of trying to beat a boss, then at that point it's like, oh my god, just finish already. I understand the core components of these. I know how to do it. I understand you want me to chain it together, but I just feel like I'm waiting over and over again.
I think that's generally why I didn't really have any issues with this until I basically got to the end of the game.
Like my feeling,
and the bosses started giving me trouble.
Like what you could do for those bosses, like you could just cut the hit points in half. You could have them take half as many hits, and that would immediately improve for all of them. For all of them.
Well, the mini bosses only require 3 hits.
No, the mini bosses require 6.
Only in Trip Story mode.
6 or more, and I think the reason they did that is they were expecting you to cheese your chaos powers and use it more often. But it's a case where they don't really work that well. If you get hit, they're instantly, stop. And so the only one that really was much of use is the charge, the boost, what are they called? The burst, type chaos power. But most of the time, unless you're fighting a smaller boss, Avatar is not as helpful as you'd think. And you're still just doing it the old-fashioned way.
Avatar does depend on the bosses. Like, certainly for the bosses with a decent amount of time between when you can attack them, the Avatar is less useful. But like the final boss, the Avatar is very useful during the second phase. But like, I don't know, like the mini bosses only require 3 hits in the regular campaign.
They require 6.
Mm-hmm.
That you hit, for a lot of them, especially the early ones, you hit them twice, and then they go to a different segment of the stage, and then you hit them twice again, and they go to a different segment of the stage.
All right, I don't have the game in front of me, so I'll just
I don't have too much problem with it. I mean, back in the old days when you were fighting these bosses, you'd also only have 3 lives or so. So if you messed up, you might have to do the entire stage over again. Where here you got, of course, infinite lives, so infinite chances. But it could still take a while.
Yeah, I for the sake of pacing, like I want the game to keep moving because it's a game about, keeping moving. And yeah, I can go at my own pace in certain spaces, but this is not me going at my own pace. This isn't me getting good at the bosses. This is because if you think of classic Sonic bosses, you can find all of the little openings where you can just hit it and get extra hits in and really accelerate how fast that boss battle goes.
Or you can just like take the damage and cheese it, which is one of my strategies.
But in this game, it's not really even an option. Like, there's not a lot of extra openings. They basically say, okay, if you're going to hit this boss at this time, you have to do it in this window, and you're going to have to wait until all of their attacks are over. And once their attacks are over, then you have this window to hit it. And I hope you hit it in that window, or else they're going to have to go through their entire cycle of attacks again before you get another chance. And there are a couple bosses where you absolutely can cheese it a bit by having like very high jumps, by playing as Amy, by finding small openings, but they're not as frequent
Honestly, I
as.
don't even like to use the word cheese because they expect you to do this in certain
Well,
areas.
you can't with every character.
Not with every character, no.
Like for the most part, like I said, Amy is OP. She has a much greater reach plus a combination with her double jump that she could hit things that even Knuckles could not hit.
Yeah, I beat the main game for the first time with Amy.
I actually did
That's
the
that's
final.
another plus actually to add to the game is you get a different animation depending on which character you beat the game with.
Well,
Each one has their own
the
cutscene.
clown in Pinball Carnival requires 3 hits. So
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. It's possible I could be
So
misremembering.
that's probably the easiest boss in the entire game.
at least with
Yeah.
Amy, like that is the character I used for that, and I didn't even have to engage with the gimmick in order to hit it. But there are certain enemies that you can cheese with different characters or different or different chaos powers. But then but that is not there's no universal way to do that in this because of the once you hit it, it's got those iframes.
Yeah.
Now I don't know. For me, the only boss where I really had issues with that in the main campaign was the final boss, because that thing's basically like 2 bosses in one.
Well, it's
Now,
one
do you
bot.
mean the final
Yeah.
boss and you mean the final boss in main story, the final boss in trip story?
We'll
I
talk
mean,
about them separately.
It's both.
Yeah.
It's both, but let's just talk about the main story right now, because that's the one that gave me the most trouble. But it's like Eggman, you know, you can really you can't really damage him directly throughout most of the first half of the fight, because you've got to he fires missiles, and you have to hit the missiles back, and the missiles get gradually more difficult to hit back as he takes damage, and you've got to hit him 6 times.
Yeah.
Which is like a whole boss battle in and of itself.
Yeah. And where the missiles are going to land, you can half predict it, but it's not really well telegraphed, which happens in other boss fights as well, of things just coming at you but not really showing you where they're going to happen.
It's telegraphed in the sense that which side of the screen that they're going to land, but it's not telegraphed in regards to where in the cluster of missiles it's going to be.
Yeah.
And he can deflect the missiles if it's anywhere within the within the front half of the robot. You have to make sure the missile lands in the back half, and that's difficult to do near the end, because at that point the missiles are the far side of the cluster. And so if you're not positioned in the right spot when he fires them, and if the missile was not positioned in the right spot when he fires them, then it's just not going to land. There's no point even trying. So every single time I was going after him, I would eventually get hit. I would gradually lose my rings. Sometimes my rings would just fall through the floor, because that's just because the final bosses in this can just be a bit glitchy. And then I would just let myself die at that point.
I got to the final boss playing multiplayer with my friend Mike. You can find him on Hatstack Mike on YouTube. Give him a little plug there. But we kept getting to the final boss area, and when we get there together, when he'd change forms, he'd instantly smash down and kill us instantly with no time for us to react. It would place us in the exact same position, and I don't know if that's just a glitch in co-op or what have you. I mean, one time I died and he survived, and he almost finished, but 2 times in a row, instant death.
There's
As I recall,
you know what? That's something I'm going to talk about when I talk about local co-op later.
As I recall, the boss would fire missiles, and then he would like smash down at the stage, smash his hands down the stage, and the stage will and like your platform will get thrown up, and then you like run and stuff. But like so like there was a very long period of time to when you could attack. If that attack does not go the way you want it to go, then you are just gonna have to wait and avoid getting damaged for like, I don't know, 30 seconds at least. And then once you beat it, there is a whole second phase that's basically just its own boss fight. And if you don't have at least a couple of rings there, you are gonna have some trouble. Because it's like
there is no checkpointing, and they do not let you refill rings at all. You have
no checkpointing, no rings.
You have to do both in a single run. They are long and involved boss fights. They will probably take you a successful run is probably every bit of at least 8 minutes. Like, I can't see it taking any shorter than that.
Like, what's really frustrating is that, like, so the boss, he fires these yellow lasers, which are telegraphed, to be fair, but like, I was still having some issues jumping over them effectively, and like once you're low on rings, like, it is very easy to get hit, lose that last ring, and then you're basically done. Like, there is very little margin for error throughout this entire boss fight.
Now, I did find a little bit more margin of error in the second half, but it's still very challenging.
You have more margin for error in the second half
than the first half.
You have more margin for error in the second half if you didn't get hit in the first half, because like, if you get hit once, it is very easy to lose that ring, because it can just bounce right into the abyss, and then it's gone.
But what I found interesting about it is it feels like I was playing as Sonic, and I was attempting to, try to cheese it as much as I reasonably could by just, by spamming drop dash and see how far I could get around. I quickly found that wasn't even worth it. Just running at my normal speed, I could avoid most of the things. Even the attack that Jason was describing earlier, the point in which he slams down both fists, which lifts up part of the stage. If I just kept holding either all the way left or all the way right and kept moving at a consistent pace, that took me everywhere I needed to go. It did not cause any issues.
I never had any issues with speed, although because I used Knuckles, I didn't. So, like, the final attack phase of this boss is where he starts spinning his arms around, and you have to, like, be at the very far end of the screen, and you have to be able to, like, jump over it, and I just could not do it. And if you get hit, you are just going to die, because you go right into a bottomless pit, and boom, that's it. And Knuckles just doesn't have the jump height for that.
He doesn't have the jump height.
And what I ended up doing...
Not only does he not have the jump height, but... whenever he goes into a glide, that kills all speed.
Yeah, and that actually kept killing me on that stage, because I would sometimes like go into a glide, like when he throws his arms down, the platform goes up, I would jump, and instead of just landing to run, I would glide, and then I just couldn't keep up with the path as it was collapsing, and then I die.
Yeah, Knuckles is good for level exploration. He's not so good for bosses.
So, like, what I ended up doing was, I for the second phase, I just did the first 3 hits regular, and then I used Avatar, and that just finished it off. Just delivered 3 hits, and he was dead.
You could,
you can cheese it that way, but woof.
And again, this is something
it's not cheesed to me.
Like I said, like, this would be imminently fixable if all you did was just put a checkpoint between the 2 boss segments.
Yeah,
give him some rings between them.
There are a couple of changes I would do to this game. One, a checkpoint is a permanent checkpoint. If you quit the game, you can go right back to that checkpoint. And 2, for boss battles like this, stick a checkpoint there, stick some rings there. Give us some leniency, because I don't know, this just doesn't feel well balanced difficulty wise. Yes, we all eventually beat it, and
I spent
from there.
story. I only beat the main story.
Yeah.
Yep.
I spent
So-
about an hour on that final boss.
I spent at least that long.
And then I went to spend 3 hours on the final boss of Trip Story. And then I probably spent another 2 on trying to beat the final boss.
I did not spend that long on the final one. Of the final boss fights, the supersonic one is probably the easiest for me, which, to be fair, isn't saying much. But
It might have been the easiest. I still really hated it. I don't like supersonic boss fights in the best of times. This was not the worst, but it sure
Sonic
wasn't
Heroes
among
is
the
worse.
best. Sonic Generations is the worst. It is the actual worst. It is the absolute worst.
When I was playing through this and thinking, man, this boss battle has some serious issues, I am still like having some fun. Where does this rank for me in terms of supersonic? And it's like, okay, better than Generations. It's better than Heroes. It's actually probably, but like although we also haven't had like a properly good supersonic boss fight since like Sonic Rush.
So before I go any further, once you get the 7 Chaos Emeralds, is there another final boss in main story mode?
No.
So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go through the entire story mode.
Final boss in Trip Story.
So you're gonna go through the entire story mode, and that will unlock Trip Story. Then you go through the entire Trip Story, and that will unlock Final Story, provided you have all 7 emeralds. Which, I mean, you can get all 7 emeralds in a single run on the main story. It's fine. And that's the point in which you get access to like the supersonic boss fight.
Yeah. So the final boss battle for Trip, sorry for spoiling this for you, Shigs, is Fang, who
I know it's Fang and the giant mech. I've already been spoiled on that.
Okay.
Well, Fang, I liked it more than Eggman's boss fight, even though it definitely gave me more trouble.
I like it in concept. I did not like it in practice.
It has instant death lasers.
It has like 3 ways that it could instantly kill you. Like,
okay, so there is the instant death lasers. There is his giant mech pop gun,
which
funny.
Which basically, to break it down, phase 1 is you're just attacking him in this big supercharged flying craft that he's parked his Marvelous Queen into, and he's just shooting off weird laser things that, like you said, are instant death. Why are they instant death? I don't know. Why can't you just lose your rings when you hit them? I don't know. Screw you. This is hard mode, I guess.
It would be like significantly better if it just wasn't instant death.
Always Sega's answer to hard mode is that screw you. This is hard mode now.
Yeah, listen. Okay,
it was
developers.
The same with Frontiers.
So hey, developers. Real talk here. Something that you should never do in a boss fight, even if it's like a final boss fight, unless it's a very fringe condition, is instantly kill your players. It is never fun in any circumstance when you do that. Stop doing that.
Yeah. And like, although I admit the way you instantly die to the pop gun is hilarious because it like sends you at the screen and cracks it.
Yeah, well,
which I could appreciate the animation.
So in the second phase, the possible insta death situation for that is Knack is in the big mech. In the main story, you destroy the big mech, so like Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, Amy, they don't encounter it because that was taken care of previously. In this one, you actually fight the big mech. However, the big mech has a series of attacks. One of the attacks sends out these sort of spiderweb-like nets that spin around you. They take up a lot of the screen and can be a bit hard to avoid, and he fires several in a row, so
I found a couple different ways to cheese those to actually make
Yeah.
it pretty easy for me, but like it's not immediately obvious. And if you mess up once, you have a very good chance of just dying. Which,
Yeah.
like, again, very, very low margin for error. Like, so even if you are very good at dodging them, mess up like I ended up being, mess up once, and you still are just gonna die.
And if you get caught in one of them, basically you have the chance to get out, but hey devs, let's have another real talk again. You know that thing that you always do where you make a player mash buttons to cause something to happen? That is not accessible design. You also need to stop doing that. Even Shredder's Revenge understood, no. You give the player the option to just hold a button to get out of something like that. Here, they want you to just mash the button to do that. And you might be able to if you're very fast and very lucky, but also, of all of the things that you might or might not be able to get good at, mashing a button faster is not a learnable skill. It's either you can do it or you can't do it.
Now, again, you can actually hit 2 different buttons to mash twice as fast. On PlayStation X and Circle. But I don't know,
it shouldn't auto kill you in the first place. Like, there's no reason for it.
It shouldn't auto kill you. Like there's a particular timing where like you wait until it's about to target and then you jump and you'll just jump over it. And once you understand that, it's pretty easy. But then like if you accidentally mess up your jump in any way and you get caught, even if you break free, if you aren't able to get out of the way in time, you are still going to die, which again happens to me. Like.
And then, on the final set of attacks,
maybe Oshima thinks they still have rapid fire buttons in some of the old controllers.
Yeah, I don't have them now.
Yeah, well, some do, but I don't want to set that up just for that. I have to mash a jump button. What am I going to make my jump turbo? And then in the final one, there was one attack that just immediately killed me right away because without much wind-up or warning, the mech grabs the sides around you and performs like a big headbutt. I got caught because I didn't know what it was doing. I went over to the sides, got hit on the sides like, oh, there's no ground here now. Congrats, you're dead.
Yeah, it got me too. Like, its head does glow, which, I don't know, I guess that does indicate it's about to do something with its head, but
But also, you're introducing a new attack that late in the cycle? Like, what are we doing here?
It's like for the final attack, it's like for the final 1 or 2 hits you have to deliver, all of a sudden just changes its entire attack pattern.
Yeah, it's... hey, do we transition into talking about Supersonic? Supersonic does the same thing. Supersonic's like, well, for this final attack, we're going to introduce a new mechanic that has never been in the game before.
Oh, yeah, okay, so that tripped you up too. So, yeah, so, like, so the final boss fight... The final boss fight is like we said before, is a giant purple dragon. And, like, for the most part, like, it's easy to understand its attack pattern. Like, it's... At the start, it launches red and blue projectiles. You have to hit the blue ones back. This is the game's standard design language. And then another thing you can do is like it moves you. It starts throwing black holes at you, and you have to like dodge them and hit it. Again, seems fairly sensible. And then like the second phase of this boss battle, kind of It throws out the projectiles, but instead you have to like hit these purple hands, which
they're very fast and
indication that works.
Yeah.
Like I found it out by accident. GX found it out by accident, and I was able to eventually do it like with some like I could do it on purpose. when I'm able to like dodge
Yeah.
them in time, but
And-
that's also very hard.
And it's not even that's not even the issue I have with it. The issue,
Yeah, but I'm just like I was
Yeah.
going through the entire boss battle before we
Yeah.
get to the final bit, so that people get it. So like the other way you attack him is again you rush towards him and he fires like these big fireballs at you.
But
You have
also-
to dodge them and hit him.
but
So
also
that's most of the boss.
no,
Sorry, go on.
no. That's not most of the boss. Most of the boss is him throwing a bunch of garbage at you. Nothing that can really cause you any meaningful problems.
Yeah.
But really, all it does is maybe mildly hinder you as you ramble around this primarily empty screen as
Yeah.
as rings, occasionally come out. You kind
It
of
drip feeds. So it commits a cardinal sin for supersonic boss fights in that it randomly drip feeds you rings, and every now and then, and Tails or Knuckles will fly through and give you a whole bunch of rings. But when they do it, it's completely random. There is no like planning for it. Sometimes they will do it right before you are transitioned to a different part of the boss fight, which means that you just miss out on that whole thing. It's like there's just no rhyme or reason to it. And so like you can be in a position where you just like you aren't able to get enough rings, you're chronically low on rings, and then you can't collect enough of them and you die. Now, the final phase of the boss fight, like the final bit, he starts firing rock. He starts like
he shoots meteors at
introduces
you.
a whole new mechanic. He starts shooting meteors at you from the background, and rings basically just disappear at this point. If you don't have rings, you are dead.
You need like between at least 20 and 30, maybe closer to the 30 range, because
like when I finally beat it, I managed to collect 100 rings. And I think I went into that with like 50.
Yeah.
But like so he fires meteors at you, and like you have to essentially hit them back when a targeting reticule like closes in on them, and you have to be in front of them in order to do that as well. And it's like this is a completely brand new mechanic, not taught to you at all, not telegraphed, nothing.
And if you miss,
we were just complaining about something like that. Just
sure
like 2
were,
weeks ago.
weren't we? We sure were, weren't we, Jason? Weren't we?
And-
weren't we talking about exactly that?
And if you mess up, and if you mess up sending it back, like again, you are probably going to die unless you have a lot of rings, because like you have to hit it back to the boss multiple times, which takes time, and then you have to dodge a laser, and then you have to land one more targeting reticle to kill it. And this whole thing is done with no rings unless you are lucky enough for Tails or Knuckles to fly through, which can happen at random. So it's, I don't know, like it's this whole boss battle. It's just built around all this RNG. It's just, I don't know. It feels like such an unforced, poorly designed way to make a boss. And when things are going your way and like the rings are flowing, it's a lot better, at least for me. But nevertheless, like that shouldn't be an issue to begin with.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't personally, given my experience with supersonic boss fights as of late, even Mania's I don't think is very good. I think they need to stop having these supersonic boss fights. Like,
I am happy with them as like a victory lap sort of deal. Like that for me, that is basically
Sonic to begin with, is just to have that as something for fun when you're replaying the game.
like that's why I didn't mind how shallow they were in Sonic Frontiers, because there was a lot of spectacle. So like, okay, like yeah, sure, they're very shallow, but they're at least cool to look at, and they take like, I don't know, a minute or two. So,
Right.
but
no, they took longer than that.
okay, I don't know. Like I had fun with them.
Did you have fun
But,
playing them, or did you have fun watching them?
I mean, I don't know, both, I guess. Like I had fun just wailing on the boss, I guess. Like, I don't know. Like I said, didn't mind how
You
shallow
don't
they were,
sound
but they
very
were cool.
confident in that statement. Like you sound awfully I don't know.
Honestly, I never thought of it like that. To me, just yeah, I play them, I have fun. I guess they're fun to play, but I don't know. Maybe it is just they're fun to look at. I've never thought of it. But like, regardless, like I don't know.
I
But
this it's just the issue is not like hey, you fundamentally didn't know how to make what you were making. The problem and what really just sticks in my craw is it felt like they were so close. It
yeah,
felt like they were so close at like really authentically capturing everything that I would want out of the classic Sonic experience. And for the most part, they do. But there's just a handful of choices, not even like hey, we would have to completely change the design to make this work choices, but just sort of like weird technical choices. Things like the camera, like you said. Things like the way that they're handling boss animations. Like, you could chop so much of that out. Just make it much more straightforward, and it would immediately be a much better experience.
now we should talk about trips. Trip story specifically, because to me that's where the game does fall apart a little bit. Like because you know how I said, yeah, in the campaign, everything is well telegraphed and like there aren't like a whole lot of cheap death moments or anything. There aren't a whole lot of death bits
It is
with Trip.
It is
Like
neat that they made a campaign that is slightly harder than the main campaign. But as
slightly.
you're
I'm going through Trip's campaign right now, and I don't mind the levels being harder. It's the bosses that
Well,
are getting to me.
that's because you like haven't gotten to the bits where there's just like I don't know, there's a switch suspended over a bottomless pit surrounded by spikes that you have to hit.
yeah,
And
it ramps up a little bit too hard and not always in good ways. It to me, that's where it really hit me that like, oh, the camera here is not good
like
enough for what they want me to do.
yeah, like the second act of Golden Capital is just full. It is not only very prickly, it is full of crushing death things. Like the
Crushing
second act is
death
just
things.
the second act of Golden Capital is just poorly designed because it's just everything kills you. There's so much instant death, and the screen really isn't big enough to show all of the hazards, all of the enemies, and so you are constantly getting blindsided or killed, especially if you aren't careful. And it's also one of the few levels where even turning into Trip super form, which is kind of this big sluggish dragon that just fly around the screen, which does kind of let you cheese the level design a bit. Like I did that in that level, and the dragon just got crushed.
Yeah.
just died.
The game isn't well designed to handle a character that can just fly anywhere at any time. Like I went up to a corner of a stage and it somehow squished me into the side of a wall where I respawned and died immediately. There were moments whenever like I wasn't quite like sequence breaking, but I was expected to get to a point that would send me into the background layer, and it didn't because I was a dragon, and
Mhm.
instead it just sort of kept me in the foreground layer, and I was just kind of stuck.
Oh
So
boy.
it it's a
They really
neat
should set up invisible walls for that.
or or visible walls or
Well,
like
or that.
or just like warning signs. Like there are points in which I was more keenly aware of this with Trip, that they don't really have a good way to telegraph which pits are bottomless pits.
Yeah, like I remember like the first time Trip Story dropped me into a bottomless pit. Like it was in
It's
a
like,
speed
what-
jungle and went down a pipe
What's a
and just
bottomless
sent you
pit?
right into a pit.
Yeah, what
And,
is a
like-
bottomless pit? I've never seen one of these before.
And so, like, you know, my immediate thought was, man, if only this game had those warning signs from Sonic Colors. Figured this out like 13 years ago.
Yeah.
And the main campaign, like by and large, bombless the parts where there aren't bombless pits, there are rings that are telling you can go down. But
Yeah.
like, but like in this, you can just but in this like. You just kind of don't assume that it's gonna just drop you into a bottomless pit, and then you just die. And like then like I went through the second time and I jumped and I landed on the far wall. I rolled up it because Trip can do that. And when the level design for Trip clicks, it is a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
But the problem is they don't do it consistently.
Yeah. It's like I said, I liked having some of the elements where it's just a slightly harder stage, but it's just very unbalanced. It's at some point it's like, oh, that's cool that there are extra enemies here. That's cool that they have this hazard here to sort of force me to use all of her abilities to their maximum extent. It's cool that they add like, hey, a very difficult form of enemy in the form of like egg bots populating the stages.
Those things can be a pain.
What's not cool is when the egg bot is shooting at me from off screen through obstacles, and there's not a lot I can react to it with.
So the egg bots, like they are a new type of enemy exclusive to Trip's mode that just like shoot their lasers at you, and they're very accurate. They aren't like stormtroopers, and they can be cheap when they do it from off screen.
Or if there's more than one.
That's not new for Sonic. You know, I've gotten off screen hit by buzz bombers plenty of times, but regardless, like it's not something they needed to have. In my mind, Trip's story would have been a much better experience if they had just like instead of saying this is going to be something designed for Trip and it's going to be hard mode, they could have just said this is something designed specifically for Trip and we're using the same basic design philosophy as the main game. If they just done that, then like I could just say, oh yeah, there's this whole new mode with like with these levels, some of which just have brand new layouts that just double the length of the game. Like that, it's so much value. Instead, it's like, oh, you know, like this actually kind of makes the game worse. Like, I hate having to say that.
There's just a. I still like it. There's just a few and it's my feelings about the game. I like this game. I wish I liked it more, but there's just a couple places where it's like, here's you're going, you're having a good time, bam, roadblock.
And
Get through it.
Probably the worst part about Trip's story for me is that they do double the hit points of all of the bosses. Like, the Eggman bosses go from 6 to 12, and assuming I'm remembering correctly, the mini bosses go from 3 to 6. And that does, and like, again, that does just make all of them at least a little more frustrating to fight.
That could be playing into some of my memories of fighting the bosses and some of my upsettedness with how many hits they take.
Like,
I did not realize that was the case.
Like the pterodactyl boss in the ice level, I enjoyed that on the in the main campaign, but in the new campaign, like it fires more bombs, more of the platforms behind you disintegrate, and like it is very easy to just get hit, fall into the hole, and just immediately die. And on top of all of that, it requires more damage.
This game has a weird
Annoying.
For a Sonic game. This game has a weird association between difficulty and bullet hell. Like there's a lot of enemies, especially bosses, that are just like, we're gonna fill the screen with bullets. Figure it out.
I was genuinely like worried that they were just going to ruin the fantasy zone level, and thankfully, like it wasn't too bullet helly. Like, you know, I beat it on my first try, but
you can
man,
you can still control well enough. You have enough nuance to what you're doing with the controls that even whenever things are pretty tight, you can scoot around.
Like I know Shigs has experience with this because like Eggman starts throwing like the Sky Ruins boss throws way more saws at you. in Trip's story
Oh.
versus the regular one.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
And the jellyfish just throws way more electric shocks. So it's just so much more that you have to dodge. So I don't know, like it does just kind of feel like they sort of just kind of ruined what hurt what could have been a
Eh.
very nice addition, a very cool unlockable for the game.
Weirdly, I find it weird that I'm the more positive on that between us. That I do
Well,
like.
I don't really too much problem with Trip's area being extra hard. I mean, it's kind of what it's there for. It's like it's like you're getting a bonus, what I call a new game plus, because I consider
Well,
the main story the main game and Trip's story like the new game plus, where
That
it's a
is
little
generally
more
how I think about
challenging.
it, which is one reason why I rank the game where I do in my classic Sonic stuff. But like again, you have just not gotten to Golden Capital Act 2. Like
No,
that
I
was
haven't
kind
gotten to
of a moment
the
for
worst
me.
stuff so far. I am at the the sky map area. I just finished the pinball carnival, so I think I'm on World 6.
No,
Yeah,
if
I'm
you
on
just
World
did
6 in
Pinball
Trips.
Carnival, then you are up to Lagoon City,
Okay, so I'm at Lagoon City then.
the spiritual successor to Hydro City.
I'm going to use that as a segue to say, yeah, and the music sounds an awful lot like it.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
it
and
does reference
the sky
Hydro City
level
soundtrack.
sounds quite a bit like Sky Sanctuary a bit, and that's okay. Well, let's talk about the music for a change, because this is very much. I mean, it's better than Sonic 4, but it's yeah,
It's
it seems to
inconsistent.
change depending
I
on
really like the
who's
majority of the tracks.
composing each level. There are times where you could definitely tell, okay, this is a June Sano, soundtrack, because he's over abusing that Genesis, synth and percussion parts, and then you could tell which parts are kind of a T lopes, and plus you got some surprise, conduct composers who haven't worked in Sega for a while who did a pretty good job in certain areas. None of it's bad. I don't think there's a single one that's really that bad, except
Yeah,
for the second to final act, when you're on Eggman Space. Act one
yeah, I
does
heard
a
that.
20-second loop over and over again, and it drives me nuts. I can't stand it, and it's the
Yeah,
absolute worst. Everything else is good to okay, but as far as Sonic soundtracks, this is near like the bottom 5 almost, I think.
I wouldn't go that far. Like
Yeah.
I enjoy the vast majority
I
of the tracks in here.
I would say, like, hey, it's not. It is fine. There are times whenever it absolutely tries to evoke the Genesis. Sometimes it tries too hard to evoke the Genesis in ways that don't always make sense. I'm looking at
Yeah,
you,
it's not
Jun.
evoking the Genesis. I mean, we have Sonic Mania, which shows you don't have to do that.
Yeah, and we understand that. I don't think Jun understands that, but
No.
One
but
soundtrack I go on.
but there is absolutely a couple songs in here that I love, and just most of them that are like, yeah, this sounds like video game music. Like that's the worst I could say is, yeah, this sounds like video game music.
Pinball Carnival is probably my favorite, closely followed by Lagoon City.
I
Um,
really like the Fantasy Zone remix.
that
I
is also
Yeah, that
very
was
good.
pretty good too.
And one track that I really enjoy that I think I may be alone on because people talk about how the ones that sound like Sonic 4 are bad. I really like the Push Factory, at least Push Factory Act 1.
I'm trying to remember
Like
what
that.
Press Factory sounds like. I can't. It never stuck with me. A lot of these songs, like maybe that speaks to it, but a lot of these
Yeah,
songs
that's
just
another
didn't
thing,
stick
and they're
with me.
not memorable. There's a few that are really good I can
Yeah.
remember, but there's not always that memorable
Like,
compared to
and it might
other
just be
soundtracks.
like, it might just be that I haven't played enough of it, but also my Steam Deck is telling me I played 22 hours, so I don't know what to tell you. Like,
I get the feeling that I probably have like 100 hours logged on Sonic Superstars, but most of that is me just
idling.
paused at a boss checkpoint because that's just my PS5 just records that as gameplay time.
Eh.
Pausing in a boss checkpoint and then sobbing.
Um. So
Oh my god!
so
I
we should
just slid off
probably
of the slide, and then the egg robo's there to shoot me perfectly.
Yeah.
we should probably go into the multiplayer, which I think is probably the worst part of the game. So, like,
Yeah.
I
So,
assume
wait,
that Shigs and I are the only ones who've co-opted so far.
So, okay, yeah, I have not played anything regarding battle mode. I have not played anything regarding the local multiplayer.
So,
And
I played the first few levels cooperative with my housemate Maddie, and I also played the battle mode locally. Let me just go over. Okay, we're going to do co-op first because co-op is just like, I don't know, it's just chaotic, and it's just chaotic. It doesn't really feel like it's all that well
chaotic as much
designed
as
for
just bland.
cooperative. What?
I don't call it chaotic as much as I call it. Oh, you mean co-op?
Yeah.
Not battle mode.
So I guess the important question here is, can the characters interact, and if so, how?
Tails can pick up other characters and take them flying.
But we're not
We
in
actually,
but we're not in a new Super Mario situation where it's like, oh, you can pick people up or throw them or bump into them or jump on
no,
them or
like
anything like
it's
that.
not like
No.
that.
There's no way to
Um,
really troll other players.
I mean, unless you're Tails, you can just pick people up and, I don't know, maybe you could drop them into a hole.
The
But
only way to troll
beyond
other
that,
players
no.
is to be first in line towards the goal.
Mm.
Because that's all the game cares about is who's closest to the goal, and that's the where the camera focuses on.
But
And
see, the
you'll
issue is
often
like there's
you
no
often
intuitive
lose the
way.
other player.
There's no
Yeah,
intuitive
then you
way of
have to press A to join back in. And that
there's no
happens a ton.
there's no intuitive way to tell which character is going to be the focus of the camera. It
Oh,
just
yeah.
feels completely random.
Oh yeah,
Because
so
you don't know
Sonic
you don't know
stages
who's
don't
ahead.
Yeah, Sonic stages don't inherently have a left to right progression. They're designed around like, hey, for the most part you will be moving towards the right, but also, you're going to be going left a lot. You're going to be going up, you're going to be going down. The direction towards an exit is a little bit fluid.
And so the camera just keeps moving around, switching between characters, and it's very easily to get a little disoriented. And then there are moments where, like, the gimmicks are just not designed for multiple players. Like, okay, on our YouTube, we have the big cooperative video we have is Speed Jungle. The second act of that, there is a gimmick where, like, there's areas covered in darkness and you have to grab a butterfly.
I saw this.
In
I didn't
cooperative-
ask you about it at the time, but I was real curious. Like, this looks real weird. Is it not actually giving the other players a light?
Yes, in cooperative, only the lead player gets the butterfly. Everyone else is just lost in darkness.
I didn't like
Unless
the
they're, like,
darkness
right on top
mechanic
of
to
them.
begin with. If it was like, oh, everyone has to be
The-
attached to this other person at the hip. Ooh.
No,
Yeah, the
like-
simplest way to say it is whoever's in the lead is like, think of Sonic 2. Whoever's in the lead would be the Sonic, where the other three are the Tails and are just following behind and trying to catch up. And if they can't, you end up disappearing and have to press the A button to join in again.
Yeah. And, like, to me, the best way to solve this would have been just have a designated player one, a designated lead that everyone else is then attached to. Because, like, one thing that this does have over, like, classic Sonic co-op is that if you ever get left behind, you can instantly respawn with the lead player. That works very well. And so, like, if it just, like, focused on one character consistently, then the cooperative play would be way more functional. But since it doesn't do that, it just gets very disorienting and confusing. And, like, with the darkness thing, each player just could have gotten their own butterfly, but instead, no, only the lead player has the butterfly. So, like, yeah, there's just. Oh, and also remember with the special stages, each player. So each player in the special stages, each player gets 3 moves and then it switches, which is just so awkward. And again, to me, the best way to handle it would have been to just like
somehow
whoever.
when I was playing with my friend, we were able to get 3 Chaos Emeralds. I was able to get him all the Chaos Emeralds by helping him do this mode.
Like
I was shocked.
It seems to me that the way to handle this would have been to just, hey, whoever jumps into the ring, you are playing next special stage. Like, but no, instead they just say, no, you're just gonna take turns, which is just so awkward and weird. And on top of all of that, co-op mode is also glitchier. I experienced very few glitches in this game. But the one soft lock I encountered, okay, not soft lock, like I had to exit the stage.
Yeah,
that's
sometimes considered a soft lock.
Okay, so like we got stuck in this pipe, and we were just constantly falling endlessly. We couldn't get out. It was just like we were just stuck there, and so like the game basically just broke on me. And like we've seen other videos of like cooperative mode just breaking on people, and so the whole thing just seems to be way less stable than the main game.
Which is weird because it's not as if they're having to account for online anything. It's just local, like.
Yeah, and that's another question. Why not make it online so you don't have to follow the other players perfectly, and you can each be going at your own pace?
I mean, I don't know. Even Mario Wonder couldn't do it online, so maybe there's just some technical hurdle.
I will agree it couldn't, but also I really like the way that Mario Wonder handles online. Like I have discovered like the way that game does online feels like the right way to handle online for a semi-cooperative platformer.
Now, one thing I'm hoping we'll do is get this going on Proton, and maybe do some online via that.
We'll find a way to do some streams or something. It's gonna be hard, and it probably won't be until after next week.
Oh yeah. Like we got stuff next week. So so the other thing that we should.
I was going to mention I had several glitches my playthrough
too. Keep talking about co-op. Yeah.
Yeah, because through I was playing as Amy is playing in the Tales at the time when we were going through the underwater level. I did the Amy as water power, so I was able to swim real fast and not have to worry about oxygen. And as soon as I got back, I somehow hit a wind tunnel at the same time underwater, and she just kept spinning in place, and I could not move her at all. She was completely stuck, and he couldn't get ahead for some reason on that part and was stuck with me. And then there was another where we get one of those useless warp holes where you get a few extra rings. And they both got there at the exact same time, and it just froze. And we were just completely frozen in there. So we had to reset that level. And also, like I mentioned before, the final boss would instant kill on the second attempt. It happened twice. So yeah, I mean, if you're playing this game with co-op, just be advised it's going to be much glitchier with playing with your co-op than it is in single player.
In my mind, the one thing this might be good for is to just like play casually, and that is something I am interested in, and I'm hoping I'll have some opportunities to do, because like it feels like, hey, you know what? It's still fun to just take 2 Sonic characters and just run through a stage, so long as like it's not Speak Jungle Act 2.
Yeah, it sounds like it's at least more forgiving.
If you're with a fellow Sonic fan, it's not so bad.
It sounds like it might be at least be a bit more forgiving than like a Sonic 2, where second player controls Tails cooperatively and is lost for the entire game because the Sonic character is just
something to let you guys know. If you die in co-op and the other person's still alive, you will It'll take about a minute or so, but you will be allowed to come back into the game. There's like a
Yeah,
timer
like there's a
that
spawn timer
plays.
at the bottom. So
Not doesn't really do it in the bosses, but it does it during the levels.
like the way deaths are handled and respawns are handled are very smooth. At least that does work well. And they could just fix the camera. I think this would be a pretty functional mode. But as it stands, it just has too many design issues in my view. So the other multiplayer aspect of this game is the battle
And the only
mode.
one that's online is the battle mode.
Yeah.
Which
Now
is
I played this extensively, both offline multiplayer and the single player.
I'm so
version.
sorry to hear that.
Yes,
I
and
played single
yeah,
player. You can't even get any medals in single player.
I mean because I wanted to record some footage for Sonic Stadium.
Yeah, so basically, it's kind of like almost a 2D Fall Guys kind of thing, where you're got like 4 different little mini games you can play. You only play 3 at a time, but I think there's 4 or 5 different mixes in total. One's a race to the end, which
best
that's the most
one.
fun. That's the most fun one. Yeah. There's one where you get the ability to shoot a bolt of electricity, and you shoot out at the other players, and that one's kind of stinks because you just
Yeah,
random if you get hit or not.
It's like a 2D battle mode. It's called Zap'em,
Oh,
and
Yeah,
it is
well, it's
very
not
shallow.
almost, yeah.
the
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 second one
attack
is
in that one looks so anemic.
Basically,
it's
like
that.
basically like the mechanics are just you can fire this little electric shot to kill other players, and if you get and there are electric boxes that you can hit to charge up your shot, and there's like if you get enough, you can like launch this little like Kamehameha wave, but none of it feels especially fun. So
Yeah, but I mean, the only other strategy in that one is if you get a 3 of the little spark boxes, then you can fire off a giant laser, and
and
that's about it.
And then
And
another mode that isn't very fun is this thing called survival, where you just like stand on these platforms and try to not fall off while they are getting blown up by cannons.
Hmm.
yeah,
And
and
like
just
it
try to
is,
survive on there. That one's actually, if you only got a few people online and the rest are bots, that one's pretty easy to survive. The
The
only other
yeah,
one I know is the star collecting one, where you got to go around collecting as many stars on the map as you can before
which that's
the other
probably
players do.
that's probably the second best one because like
The
at least some
second easiest
platforming's
one too.
involved.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
like whenever I watch the videos of the recordings that you sent, Alex,
Yeah,
I guess the best way that I would have described it is these seem like sub Mario Party mini games. Like
Yeah.
I don't
I
even
mean,
think they hit that.
here's my take on it is that actually Sonic Boom Fire and Ice battle mode in that game did it much better than it did in this mode,
Mm.
which
but
is
like
amazing to say.
out of all these
But
modes, only the race is fun because the race, it kind of operates like the multiplayer stages from Sonic 2, where they're kind of like these miniature stages that utilize the same physics and like so you can like roll, you can spin dash, you can jump, and they are modestly fun, um, at least in multiplayer. But like everything else is just so shallow, and it's such a shame because one thing I do enjoy is I like being able to build the robots that you play in this, even though the way the game handles how you buy parts is very cheap.
No,
'Cause,
it's very
like,
expensive. That's the
yeah, very
problem.
expensive in a cheap, annoying way. So
Like
basically,
the real answer is you would want to take the Mechasonic that you get in the digital deluxe version and then play the actual game as that.
yes,
Not quartering over
yeah,
to this extra mode
that
that doesn't
and
really work.
yeah,
I would
and
love it if I could
that's
take
the
this stuff
biggest
and play it in
shame.
the right main game.
That's the biggest shame is that you have this throwaway. You got all these medals to collect constantly in the game, and the way they present it makes it look so valuable that you got to get these medals. You got to collect as many as you can, and it's all to unlock parts for this weak ass mode in the middle of the game that's just feels
But
like throwaway garbage, really.
so
Where
we
I'd
should.
rather have that as parts, say, not even just for mechs, like a Sonic Forces thing where you can make your own avatar to play
I
in
mean,
as the game.
so like
Then you'd
personally,
have to worry about voxels, but they
I
don't worry about
prefer.
voxels for DLC characters anyway in this
I,
game.
I prefer the I personally I prefer like the robot stuff to the avatar stuff. But so we should go into how you build your robot because everything is consumable. Like every single part. Like if you want to have a if
The
you every
spray
single
paint.
part every single part like you need to paint everything individually. You need to buy individual parts, individual paints. If you
So,
want to have like
what,
a single if you want to have a single part in different colors, you have to buy the part twice and color it twice, or at least or like recolor it with or at least buy the colors to recolor it. Like there's
yeah,
no just like free easy way of changing colors.
yeah,
Every
which
part
very expensive. What?
is treated as its own thing.
That
Let me
sounds
kind of
like it
explain.
sucks.
Yes,
Okay,
but
let me explain it to you. Metal Sonic's head is 40 metals. His
yeah, it's the most
chest is
expensive one.
25. His arms are 25, and his legs are 25. Then the spray paint, if you want to spray paint his parts blue, is thank God his shoes and gloves are yellow and red. Each you have to spend 10 metals for each body part for that
Yes.
on top of that. So you're spending 40, you're basically spending $40 on spray paint because every time you spray a paint area, that's it.
Yes.
you
And
can't
like
use that spray
and
paint
once you
again.
use once you use that color, it's gone. And if you want to recolor it, like yeah, you have to spend another 10 metals, buy more color, buy another color. And if you want to recolor it back, another 10 metals for another
Now,
color. But
now,
it's frustrating because
Alex.
like it's actually genuinely fun to build these things and to customize them and stuff.
Now, Alex.
But
So it
yeah.
basically cost
You
me 145 metals to make Metal Sonic.
Now this would not be a massive deal if they were continuously throwing large amounts of metals at you.
Yes.
Is the
Yes, it
game
would not be a
doing
big
that?
deal. No, like so
No.
I put up a video of like me farming metals, and I think I ended up getting like 20 or something during that, and like I was visiting, I was doing everything I could to get metals. I was
Like something
gathering
a free to
rings, I
play
was
game
doing the
does.
special stages, I was doing the maze stages, and like like each maze stage gets you 3, each special stage gets you 5, and each 100 rings gets you 1. But like, there's no way you can like get more than like 30 medals in a level doing stuff like that. And so it just takes forever to grind out the medals for these parts. And so yeah, it's it's frustrating and I don't know. To me, I'd
Yeah.
probably be more willing to just put up with it because I guess like playing that stuff anyway. If I could play the metal characters in the main game, but since I can't even do that, I'm kind of done.
Yeah, I immediately kind of gave up on like I'm not enjoying the special stages in general, but then to say, "Hey, if you go back into these special stages, you could get medals," is like, "Okay, why do I care?" I It's just
and
yeah, it sounds this game feels like it has its heart in the right place. It has some ideas on what to do with this, but it just seems a little bit more messy, a little bit
yeah,
less
one
focused than
one
you really
one
need a
final
game like
thing.
this to be.
One final thing about battle mode. It does, of course, have an online component, as we mentioned. I've never been able to get a game on it. Now, to be fair, I haven't tried too often since the game launched. Like,
The
I
most
basically just
I've
tried a
gotten
couple times on Twitch with GX, and that was it. But as far as I understand, the game is not the game's online mode is not well populated.
Apparently, it does support crossplay, cross-system play, and the reason why I even knew this is because on the PC version, anytime you boot it up, as a lot of people are complaining about, it brings you directly into the Epic Games login page. And the reason why, there was a lot of
Oh my
concern
God.
at first that was like, wait, what is Epic handling about this? And after I did some research, it's like, oh, okay, they're using Epic Game Tools because Epic Game Tools supports cross-platform multiplayer. That's why they're doing this. That's why I have to do this. And to Sega's credit, hey, they said something at like they said something on Steam message boards being like, "Hey, we heard you that you don't like this coming up like every single time you start up the game. We're looking into it." So, it's
Oh,
weird.
one other thing.
That's
One
why I
other
prefer
thing.
playing games on
But
console.
as you can see on our in our videos on YouTube, if you do local multiplayer, it doesn't
Oh.
evenly divide
Oh.
the play area across like your entire screen.
This
It's
made me
two
so
small
upset.
screens
It made me
in the
so
middle.
upset when I saw. I
with
had
a
to.
massive border.
I had to share this over on one of the Nintendo Discords I hang out with of like, no guys, you need to see this. And it just completely blew up chat because that is the most insane way to do local multiplayer. What are you doing? Why
Like
would
that,
you
even
make it
Sonic-
that way?
Sonic 2 had this figured out. It's just two screens stacked on top of each other. That's it. What's this? What are you doing?
They had to preserve the aspect ratio for some reason. It's bizarre. I don't get it in the slightest.
Hey, you can just ignore battle mode. I would personally advise that. So
Yeah. I don't know. It sounds like we're starting to move towards wrap up. We're approaching
yeah,
we're approaching
that
the
is-
2-hour mark.
yeah,
So
that
that's
is
great.
all we really have to discuss in regards to the game. Really, like
Yeah,
all else we really have to talk about, I guess, are skins in the future.
yeah,
But, like-
yeah.
I'm expecting a Sonic Superstars Plus by next summer.
We are
I'm
not
sure.
getting Sonic Superstars Plus. The reason why Sonic Origins and Sonic Mania got Plus editions was because their initial releases were digital only. Superstars released with a physical copy. So we're not getting Superstars Plus next year.
But it sounds like
We have Frontiers DLC too, though. So I would not put it past them to have DLC.
There
We
is
will get DLC, sure, but we're not going to get a whole new physical release.
Yeah, there is some manner, to what extent we cannot say at this point, but there is some manner of rumor going about of what Sega's Sonic plans are throughout next year, and if that rumor is to be believed, there is a point on the docket for some form of Sonic Superstars DLC. What form that is, what extent that goes, who knows?
I'm sure we will get some DLC, and I always want new levels. I don't think I want I don't want them to do what they did with Unleash and release new hard acts. Don't do that. We have Trip Story. We're good. But I always want new levels, of course. But I'm also really hoping we get some new characters and especially some new skins. Like the skins do have a lot of potential to do some cool things. I
was not sold on skins at the outset. I had a lot of trepidation in the form of are we getting into Ubisoft territory where they're just going to make a whole bunch of skins and just expect you to buy them? And
Spider-Man 2 territory, because that's really bad on skins right now.
But the Lego characters, they have cool Lego-y animations.
Yeah, I was impressed. They did the work on these.
Max, the Fields the rabbit. Max Fields, whatever.
Just
the rabbit skin, he has his own whole unique personality. Almost feels like a sixth character. You could do stuff like a classic Shadow skin, or I don't know, a Mighty skin if you don't want to give us new characters. There are things you could do that could be pretty cool. They could reference classic Sonic art and stuff, like screensavers.
Is our official podcast stance now? Iizuka, release the classic Shadow cut.
Yes, I think it is. Doesn't have to be canon. Just give us classic Shadow.
I don't know. I don't know what to expect from that type of thing. I don't even know if they know what to expect from that type of thing. I don't know what their expectations are for Superstars in general beyond, they pushed advertising pretty hard. Like, not quite as hard as Frontiers, but not that far off either.
I've got to imagine they have lower expectations than Frontiers, only because it's a 2D
This feels
game.
like I was gonna say the Sonic Boom Shattered Crystals of of 2D Sonic games, where it's good, but you can see everything that where there's room for improvement. It could be
Yeah.
great. I mean, that's kind of what they did,
I would say this is
between Sonic
significantly
Boom
better than
Shattered
Shattered
Crystal
Crystal.
and Fire and Ice. Because Fire and Ice, they pretty much nailed every complaint they had about that game compared to Shattered Crystal.
I am looking forward to seeing what they can build on this. But at the same time, I do worry that what if we've seen the best of what RSS can do? Because RSS does not have the best reputation to begin with.
I will tell you with confidence, for all of my
It's
complaints
better than
about
Sonic CD, and that's the same director.
I can tell you with confidence, I have many complaints about Arzest. This is the best Arzest game that I have played.
Yes, it is. And so, what if this is the best they can do? I don't know. This really does make me look forward to what they're going to do next with Classic Sonic. But it also makes me worry, what if they focus on the wrong things? What if they double down on the multiplayer?
I mean, that's the eternal Sonic anxiety of yeah, they have a good idea. Are they actually going to build on it, or are they going to go in a dramatically different direction? Because that's what we've been through with Sonic Lost World and Sonic Generations, and I mean, who knows what's going to be next for the 3D series after Frontiers? Could they make something very much like a Frontiers, or will they try something else? It depends on which tweets of Kishimoto you believe. I don't know. It's weird. Sorry.
What?
Go ahead. I was just gonna say it's weird. It's frustrating.
Any final thoughts?
It's good. It's all right. It's not a perfect
Especially
game.
the main story.
Yeah. It's fine. It's I have a lot of complaints, and I stand by those complaints. But at the same time, I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, I like this more than Frontiers. I would absolutely go to play this before I would go back to playing Frontiers. It's fine. It also has the major issue of coming out alongside of a critically acclaimed Mario game, which is fantastic on almost every level, and draws immediately comparisons. And compared to the new Mario game, it can't stand up to the slightest.
Yeah. Mario Wonder is just a more inventive
normally,
game.
I like the 2D Sonic games a lot more than I like the 2D Mario games, but everything I've heard about Wonder just really hits it out of the park this time.
Wonder's so
I will
good,
say
man.
this about Wonder: it is significantly better than New Super Mario Brothers.
It is very much so.
It's a very creative game.
Sonic, I wouldn't feel too worried about Sonic if it was another new Super Mario Brothers, because those things
I am probably going to be going back to Superstars way more often, though.
I will absolutely be playing more Mario Wonder than I have every bit of interest in going back to Wonder right now and completing everything that game has to offer. And
fortunately, I'm still waiting on my copy in the mail.
Sonic Superstars, I completed the extra stuff. At some point, it just felt like out of obligation, not out of because I really liked that last Supersonic. But no, I didn't. But playing casually, I can see myself going through it. It's just, it's never gonna.
It's got some good replayability to it.
But it's never. Parts. But if I'm presented with two options, I'm never gonna choose it over Mania. Mania is such an easy go-to for me. It does everything that this game does, but except for power stuff and multiplayer stuff, but better. It is just still ultimately peak classic Sonic.
Yeah, Mania is the best by a mile, easily, because it just has
Yeah.
better level design. But
Well,
for me,
it's just
like
Mania is
I've just
basically
played too
one of
much
the best, if
Mania.
not the best, 2D Sonic game.
I've played too much Mania. Superstars is fresher for me. So once I beat, so like I am probably going back to Mania. I'm probably buying it on my Steam Deck or my Switch at some point to go through it again. So like I don't know, but I do think Super Mario Wonder easily the best 2D Mario game to me from what I've played so far, and definitely better than Superstars. Like without question. So I think that about
But
wraps
also,
things up.
There's definitely a lot worse 2D Sonic games over
Oh,
Superstars.
absolutely. Like I said, this
Yeah.
is the best polygonal 2D classic style Sonic that they have made. Like that Sega has internally
Aren't
made
the
without going to like fan developers.
Oh, I guess you're talking about Sonic the Rush games and and Sonic 4 episode games and Generations 3DS.
I'm
I don't know
trying.
if I'd count Rush.
Yeah, I might not count. I might. It might be.
And if you're counting
This
Sonic
might be
and
better.
Fire and Ice, I'm kind of a big fan of Fire and Ice, so I don't know if it's as good as that for me.
This might be better than Rush, but I don't think it's better than Rush Adventure.
Yeah, I could see
wow.
that.
I don't know. I have a big love for Rush, so it's hard for me to say.
But so regardless,
Before we go,
so
I
yeah.
have something that we probably should need to talk about.
Oh, what's that?
That is what next week is going to look like.
I was about to lead into that.
Cool, perfect. Next week is.
So yeah.
Go ahead. I'll leave it to you then.
So Sonic Hacking Contest starts tomorrow, and we're going to be doing a bunch of streams, GX and I. The schedule I should already be up.
If it's not, then
And,
we can list out what we've got. We have a slot on Tuesday, 10 p.m. Eastern to basically close to what, midnight?
probably 11:30.
Okay.
But yeah, like unless my stream is doing really well viewership wise, I'm probably gonna end a little early that night.
We've got a big chunk on Wednesday from 7 p.m. all the way to probably about 11:30 again.
Yep, and you're gonna be taking the first 3 hours on that one, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Starting at 7 p.m.
We've got a stream on Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m. And we've got another stream on Friday at 10 p.m. Geez, you're going every day, man. Except for Monday and Saturday.
Yeah, that was not the original intention, but that's just like how things ended up going.
And I will be helping wrap things up on Sunday at 11 a.m. in the morning. Should be fun.
Yep.
So come check that out. I know we had someone over in Discord bringing up the fact that, hey, Sonic Mega Mix Mania is going to be one of the things there, and something to definitely be on the lookout for and excited for in Sonic Hacking Contest coming up.
Yeah.
So should be good. Should be fun.
And also, we have a episode of Sonic Talk on Sunday, where we will be discussing Sonic Hacking Contest as well as the news of the month. This will be like the actual, proper episode.
All of the news of the month is Sonic Superstars, and we probably already discussed it so far.
Not all of it. There's some other stuff. We'll also be talking about the Sonic Halloween special. So, yes, stay tuned for that. And then November, you're probably just not going to hear from us until the end, anyway.
Maybe I will be very productive for the rest of the month and have all of my streaming stuff together.
Oh, please. I miss Sega Sonic Radio so much.
I miss Sega Sonic Radio so much.
And almost every Sonic.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So, thanks for tuning in. And also stay tuned to Sonic Stadium, the website, for written previews. For written reviews and previews of Sonic hacking contest stuff.
And if you want lots of video, we put up lots of video on YouTube of Sonic Superstars. If you need to see any part of that game,
including including hopefully soon the Twitch stream that we did.
Yeah, I know.
And once Sonic hacking contest is done, we will be doing another. I will be doing another Twitch stream covering the second half of the game.
Spoilery.
Yeah. So see you guys. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Take care. YouTube is done.